It's 1 o'clock, and I want to stay to this because everybody's time is precious. I know we're in the middle of the day. It is great to see everyone, through this mechanism. It's the closest we're getting. We've gotten a fantastic response and a great turnout. And right off the bat, I just want to say thank you to the Philadelphia Israel Chamber of Commerce Executive Director, the one and only Vered Nohi, who actually put this all together in next to no time. And Vered, credit and kudos to you.
Thank you.
Politics aside completely, because that's not what the Philadelphia Israel Chamber is all about. This singular moment is something that we can all agree on. Consul Dani Dayan, it is truly a great and genuine honor to recognize you today. You are among friends. We did this as a Zoom meeting rather than as a webinar because we wanted you to see everybody. And I think that makes a difference. We're going to unmute for a moment right now so that we can just join in and welcoming the Honorable Dani Dayan. I'd stand up, but I'm wearing shorts and I don't want that. Yeah, Consul General, you're
Howard, you're muted.
Never mute me. Never mute me. What I was saying was that you're fighting the good fight, Consul Dayan, and everybody in this room is with you. An august group got together and assembled for this occasion. Truly a cross-section of the leadership of the Jewish and pro-Israel communities in our region. Consul Dayan received a list of all the people on this call, so he knows who's on it and he has that to keep. There are dozens of participants, including representatives from, just a sampling, AJC, the City of Philadelphia, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the Consular Corps, the Consular Corps Association of Philadelphia, the Development Corporation for Israel, Israel India Technology Group, the Israeli American Council, the Jewish Federation of Delaware, the Jewish Federation of Greater Philadelphia, the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development, the PA Office of International Business Development, the Philadelphia Orchestra is represented, and of course, ZOA, Zionist Organization of America, and others. It's just a great turnout. I will ask some of the questions, but those on the call, as I mentioned earlier before we started officially, you can ask questions yourself. Just send me a message in chat so that I can see it. Chat's in the middle down below on most of your screens. And just let me know that you have a question and I'll try to get to you. I'll try to call on you. We'll take questions throughout, not just at the end. And those questions should be in keeping with the spirit of this occasion. I suggest you all keep this on the speaker view. That's in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Speaker view will give you a larger view of the person who is speaking, rather than just a highlighted little box. And since the consul will be the one speaking most, I think that'll be valuable for you to do that. So let me just begin with a very easy, simple, and focused question. Very focused. You had traveled to this country dozens of times, Consul, before you were assigned here. After 4 years in this position, how would you characterize your perceptions of our country and our region in terms of how that's changed or how it's changed?
Well, thank you. So first of all, thank you so much for having me, or having this event. I see here so many friends, so many faces that became, part of my life. But I know I am now stepping into a minefield if I mention this, I'm one and don't mention the other. So I first of all would like to start by really thanking you and the entire Philadelphia Israeli Chamber of Commerce. The work you do is extraordinary. The contribution that you have to the strengthening of the relations between Israel and the region you cover South Jersey and Philadelphia, metropolitan Philadelphia and Delaware is really invaluable, and it's translated. It's translated into commerce and economy and workplaces, etc., etc. And for sure, I would like to thank my very, very good friend, Vered Nohi. I love you, Vered. What can I say more than that? I simply love you, and I think that you are an amazing human being and an amazing contribution to the state of Israel and to the region.
Hear, hear.
I came here in a certain sense to a different country which I live. Politically, socially, the differences, the developments have been, it's difficult to grasp that it's have been only 4 years, and when we see the changes that we overwhelmed during those periods, I came with a Democratic administration in this country, I live with a Republican administration, and with the big question mark, which will be the next one. Pennsylvania and Philadelphia are more stable. I came with Governor Wolf, and I live with Governor Wolf. I came and lived with the same mayors here in Pittsburgh and in all other, in Wilmington and in all other places. But we are in a period of big changes that poses a great challenge to us, how to cope with them, how to each one to continue his or her work under those extremely changing circumstances. I can say really with satisfaction that during these 4 years we strengthened very significantly the relation with Pennsylvania, with Philadelphia, with the area you cover. I had the privilege to come with Governor Wolf to Israel, also with some of you, with the delegation of the PICC. And for me, that has the potential to be an additional breakthrough in the relationship, the memorandum of understanding that we signed, that I had the privilege to sign myself with Pennsylvania. Those are things that give me a great optimism towards the future, understanding that a lot of things changed in the last 3 months, and the recovery from this crisis will not be instantaneous. It will be a long process. We don't know exactly when this crisis will end. Unfortunately, in Israel, we have now a surge in the COVID cases. So yeah, this is a very challenging period. We have a very challenging period ahead, but we have reasons to be optimistic.
You know, when all of this started with the health crisis, it was everywhere you turned, there was an Israeli hospital or a laboratory or a scientific company that was promising a vaccine or some treatment or therapy very quickly. And I think as reality set in and around the world, you know, we saw that it's not going to be so fast. But Israel still, at least in our minds here, in my mind, remains preeminent. I keep looking and reading the newspapers and Israel 21C and all these other things about, you know, when is it, how are they doing? What are they doing? Is this going to affect all of us?
Yeah, you know, I am always skeptic when I see news about a new breakthrough, a new development. We have to be very skeptic and to judge the merits of every press communique that is released by a company. Israelis are working as we speak 24/7. Not only Israelis, but also Israelis are working 24/7 to find either a vaccine or a cure or something that makes the symptoms milder of the COVID-19. Then literally from Kiryat Shmona to Eilat, in Kiryat Shmona, in the northern tip of Israel, we have a science-based campus, Migal, that is really investing the best and the brightest minds in order to find a vaccine or a cure. But you know, ultimately we are in a global world, and the effort has to be cooperative, has to be international. I think that if we have to learn from this pandemic that international cooperation is essential in order to achieve success. And Israel is willing and does cooperate with many others. Fortunately, the relationship that we have with Pennsylvania, with Philadelphia, in many senses is centered on medicine. I saw here my good friends from Jefferson. When Governor Wolf was in Israel, he visited the Sheba Medical Center, the largest medical center in the Middle East, that has opened R&D operation that is concentrated, originally concentrated in the medicine of the future, and now obviously to a large extent has been diverted to finding cures or vaccines to COVID-19. So the channels of cooperation between the best and brightest Israeli institutions and the best and brightest Philadelphia institutions exist. And let's be optimistic that probably that will be the channel that will bring ultimately to mankind a solution or at least amelioration in the situation. You know, in the Bible says, we read in the Bible, Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, from Zion will come out the Torah, will come out the law. I paraphrase it in Hebrew, Ki mitzion tetzeh trufa, from Zion will come out the medicine, will come out the cure. In this case, I hope it will happen. I see also here my friend Lou Balcher from Kaplan. So we have really amazing institutions of research that are investing really all they can in order to find a cure.
I wonder how much the difficulty in traveling into and out of Israel now, either for labor reasons or for health reasons, and the quarantine requirements, that affects business in a very dear way.
No doubt. Look, that is a symptom. I mean, we are in an economic crisis that I'm not sure we grasp its entire magnitude at this time. We are lucky, both our countries, Israel and the United States, that we enter this crisis with respective robust economies. Israel entered this crisis with its lowest ever rate of unemployment. Israel entered this crisis with a record in foreign exchange reserves in the coffers of the Bank of Israel. Israel entered this crisis with a surplus in the balance of payments. Israel entered this crisis with a very positive rate of debt to GDP. So thank God it happened that way with good ratings in the credit rating agencies. But that doesn't make you immune to this kind of crisis. This kind of crisis is a completely different level for what we could have foreseen. The government of Israel, as other governments, including this country, is trying to, to channel funds in order to stimulate the economy, and also, to give people the chance to make a living. So the travel is one of the impediments that we have, a very serious one in a country, that in a world which really was global and the economy was global. I will give you, for instance, the example of the San Francisco-Tel Aviv air route that was thriving. It was thriving not because of tourism. It was thriving because of the more business from Silicon Valley to what we call the Silicon Wadi, the Israeli Silicon Valley. And now it's non-existent, from a situation in which we had from North America dozens, literally dozens of daily flights. We had flights from New York, Newark, Boston, hopefully in the future, Philadelphia also, Miami, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Dallas, Chicago, Montreal, Toronto, and I'm sure I forgot one or two. Suddenly we are in Washington, suddenly we are in a situation in which we have only one or two daily flights from New York. That is an incredible change, yeah. And as you know, non-Israelis cannot enter Israel for business. Israelis can come to the United States, but it's not easy to do it.
There's a quarantine when you get back home, isn't there?
Exactly.
One of our great victories, all of us together, is that memorandum of understanding. And it was historic for any number of reasons. But what do you see the potential of that piece of paper? Many of the people on this call were involved in the mechanics of it and in making it happen. You included leading the list. What do we do with that? What do you see the potential as?
I think now the potential is huge. We have to pour into its substance. We already did pour into its substance, but we have to pour into it even more substance. I think that as the current situation develops, I think that the medical industries, the medical institutions can use this channel in order to enhance cooperation between Israel and Pennsylvania, Israel and Philadelphia, to directions that we didn't imagine in the past. But there are many other areas in which we have to make an effort, a concerted effort, both in Israel, the Israeli Innovation Authority and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, to pour more substance into that. The signing of the MOU was an important step, but definitely we have to strengthen to use the huge potential that it has. It has also obviously other vehicles like the Bird Foundation. We have a myriad of vehicles that we have and can use, and I believe that we will use. The visit of the Governor Wolf to Israel was a groundbreaking event. Unfortunately, 2 months later came this situation that so we had a follow-up meeting with the governor. Whoever it was there was very helpful in facilitating it. And we had great plans. And then came this pandemic virtually 2-3 weeks after that meeting, and the attention, the bandwidth of attention completely diminished. But we cannot continue indefinitely paralyzing the economy. So I believe that that will be one of the first things that Israel and Pennsylvania together will reignite when we return to some kind of normalcy.
I want to hold the banner high for the Garden State of New Jersey, which when Governor Murphy went to Israel, I believe that's the first time, at least in my experience, that any governor, certainly in this region, went in their first term. That usually never happens. It's a rarity. Voters like to see, and the political people on this call who understand domestic politics, they know the voters like to see the governor stay in the state the first year. And the Governor Rendell, I believe, went later. Governor Ridge, I remember, went in the second. Murphy won first in the first time. I thought that was a great step. From your perspective, all of us taken together, because while the Philadelphia Israel Chamber of Commerce is the preeminent business development arm here in our community, a lot of these organizations also have something to do with business and technology and developing new partnerships and new strategies and things like that. What can we do better? What can we do better to advance our common cause?
Look, I must admit that I have a very special relationship with Governor Murphy, with the First Lady of New Jersey, Tammy Murphy. Actually, I spoke with them less than an hour ago, with both of them. Governor Murphy not only went to Israel in his first term, I think he went in the first year of his third term, or probably at the beginning of his second year. Governor Murphy made a strategic decision to see Israel as an ally, as a strategic partner to New Jersey. There are other states that see Israel as important, but Governor Murphy in New York does it, Pennsylvania does it. We were in I am in charge of 5 states. With Delaware, we have also, but also in Ohio, we were in the initial stages of planning the visit of Governor Dayan to Israel when the pandemic started. It was due to happen in the first quarter of 2021, but now I am not sure it will happen. But Governor Murphy brought Israel, see the relationship between his state and Israel as in a completely different level than all others. He sees as strategic, and he behaves that way. He nominated an executive director full-time for the Israeli-New Jersey Commission. So in New Jersey, there are persons in the administration that wake up every morning, and the question they ask themselves is what I do today in order to strengthen the commercial relations with Israel. That is unique to New Jersey. And I am sure that New Jersey, and also Israel, of course, but also New Jersey will gain very much from that. And yes, it's competition also from Pennsylvania. Take, for instance, Teva, the Israeli pharmaceutical giant that consolidated all its American presence in New Jersey.
I'm not sure how many people know, just on this one subject of New Jersey, since we're boosting our whole region, Delaware, Pennsylvania, and Jersey. When our governor was Christine Whitman, and I know you're aware of this, a few years ago, Israel was New Jersey's 6th largest trading partner. That's extraordinary. We've never gotten back to that, but we could. And with the right kind of leadership, as I believe we have now, based on what you've just said, that could happen again. So what can we do better? What can all of us do better to strengthen those ties?
Well, I think that the first and foremost thing that you need is attention. You need attention because the vehicles exist to a large extent. The vehicles exist to a large extent, and we need, both from the Israeli side and from the respective states on the other side, to give them the proper attention, the proper staff to give that attention. All what I'm saying now is dependent, obviously, in the macroeconomical developments of the near future. We really don't know where the world is headed economically in the coming months. We don't know how long this paralysis or semi-paralysis of the economic activity in the world will continue. I must admit that this is a very uncomfortable time to make decisions, the level of uncertainty that we witness these days, I don't think we have witnessed this level of uncertainty for decades.
We almost lost you to Argentina, yes?
To Brazil.
To Brazil, forgive me. So, do you ever think back about what might, yes, Emily Dickinson in her poetry, what might have been?
Look, I was, I am not a career diplomat. I one day received a phone call from Prime Minister Netanyahu telling me he wants to see me urgently, and he asked me to go to Brazil as Israel's ambassador. We had in those days a very problematic relation with Brazil. President Dilma Rousseff was not a great fan of Israel. And Prime Minister Netanyahu thought that being myself a native of South America, I can be the person that will be able to handle that situation. I wasn't so excited of going to Brasilia. Actually, I refused, but you know, Benjamin Netanyahu is a very persuasive person. I met him one Saturday night, Motzai Shabbat, in his residence, and from that day I told him that I need a few days to think it over, and I intended to refuse, but he called me every single day until I accepted. But then there were some diplomatic issues, and finally he gave me what I wanted originally, which is New York. We are in New York, the largest diplomatic mission of Israel in the world. We cover 5 states: New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Ohio. I know that there were reservations when Israel, many were worried when Israel closed its Consul General in Philadelphia. We do our best to continue with the same level of service. I've been to Philadelphia in my second day in the United States. Yeah, I think that there is no more interesting position in the Israeli Foreign Service than this one.
You know, first I want to welcome Deputy Consul Israel Nitzan, who I believe just joined this call. Welcome, sir. Those of us who follow you on Twitter and who see, it's as if you don't sleep. So many visits, so many places, so many events, happy events and sad events, because you were here for some Jewish catastrophes, and you were also here for some great victories. What's the first thing that comes to your mind from your sojourn? Is that a fair question? What do you think? The first thing that comes to mind from your term here in the States?
Well, you know, my term here was a roller coaster. Was a roller coaster of events, was a roller coaster of feelings, from exhilarating events to extremely sad ones. No doubt, the one event that impacted me most in these 4 years was the shooting in Pittsburgh. From all places in the world, it found me in Phoenix, Arizona. I was in a JNF, Jewish National Fund National Conference there, and it was Saturday morning. Because of the time difference, I started hearing the news in a very early hour, and I knew that I have to go immediately to be there in Pittsburgh. I arrived to Pittsburgh Saturday night when the bodies were still lying inside the Tree of Life synagogue. I arrived there in a very dark, rainy night. I remember the site. It was midnight, only FBI and Pittsburgh police and Chevra Kadisha, the Jewish society that takes care of the deceased, that were waiting to enter the place in order to remove the 11 bodies that were lying. I stayed in Pittsburgh for the entire week, participating in all the funerals, in all the shiva, with the families. That was for me, an indelible experience that unfortunately returned in a smaller scale in Jersey City and later in Muncie. On the other hand, I think that the celebration of the 70th anniversary of the State of Israel in Times Square in New York City, when we really painted New York in blue and white. I remember Netta Barzilai, the Israeli singer that won the Eurovision contest, singing from all the screens around in Times Square. That also was, in a completely different sense, an indelible experience that I take with me from this. And I had also many Philadelphian incredible experience from concerts of the Philharmonic conducted by an Israeli young prodigy to in visiting the historic sites of Philadelphia, the historic Mikveh Israel synagogue, and even being the keynote speaker in a gala of Philadelphians that were born in Argentina.
Ah, there you go. I knew there was an Argentina connection. Right? Are you, by all counts, certainly we all believe, but I think anybody looking at your tenure here would have to say this was a great success. When you go back, are you determined to stay in government because you're also a successful business person?
No, I'm not sure actually what exactly I will do when I go back. I didn't plan too much in advance. I always say that the good things in my life happened by surprise, including both in business and in different positions, including this phone call I got from Prime Minister Netanyahu that day. So as I said earlier, the only sure thing is I'm going for 14 days of quarantine when I land in Israel in Ben Gurion Airport on August 2nd. And that will give me time to consider. I have obviously some ideas, including some offers, both in the private and in the public sectors. But I think that after those 4 hectic years, I will take some time to make calm decisions.
I thought you were going to say I'm going to take some time to take a nap.
Yeah.
You said Ophir, so let me ask about your daughter, Ophir. She is very active. For people who don't know, she runs a very important organization at Columbia University. And I had the pleasure of meeting her when we were together with the governor for Hanukkah. Does she go back with you?
Well, actually, she's already in Israel. She intended to go for the summer break to Israel, and she's there. Actually, she's now in the 14 days of quarantine. She intended to come back for the fall semester, but since the fall semester probably will be entirely via Zoom, probably she'll do it from Israel. One of her considerations is how that will influence her pro-Israel advocacy activity in Columbia University, in which she is very important for her to continue. I couldn't be happier from the transition that I already feel from Ophir being my daughter to I being the father of Ophir.
Well, I think you both I'm sure have a lot to be proud of.
Oh, you are Ophir Dayan's father. Okay, that's very good.
My friend Steve Feldman from ZOA has a question, and Steve, if you unmute yourself, you can address the Consul General.
Before that, I think I see here two Deputy Secretaries Burke and Collins. I think I appreciate tremendously their presence here. It's not obvious that they take the time to participate, and I think it's part of the bond that we and you built with the administration of Governor Wolf.
Yep, very good, and I do thank them as well.
And there is, if I may, one more person. There are so many friends I saw here in the screen, but there is one person, I hope he's still there here, that I really love and appreciate in particular, and that is my good friend Marcel Gron. That really his advice, he's always willing to spend time to give me and my staff advice on issues that he understands better than anybody else. So Marcel, really, I feel that I can't thank you enough for your personal friendship and for your friendship and contribution to the state of Israel.
Amen, amen. So let me guess, I have past president of PICC, Neil Cooper, and Steve. Steve, you were first on the list here. So if you unmute, ask the question.
Thanks, Howard. Thanks, Consul General Dayan. Really appreciate your leadership and coming down to Philadelphia as often as you have and continuing Israel's presence here in our region. My question to you is, once you get home and your limitations, your diplomatic limitations are lifted, what will you tell Israelis about America after 4 years living here?
Well, the problem is that my limitations are not lifted.
They're not lifted yet, I know. Give us a hint if you can.
Yeah, but you know, I think I hinted about it earlier. There is a complex situation now in this country, both political and social. My piece of advice, if I might have the chutzpah to advise Americans, I think that to a large extent, what brought America to greatness is the fact that we had the broad mainstream that led the society and brought it forward to incredible achievements, probably achievements incomparable to any other country, probably in history. And it's important, I think, that mainstream doesn't let the fringe elements, the extreme elements to take the lead and to lead the discourse and overshadow the vast majority of Americans. But I will elaborate. You know, I'm not sure how I'm not sure Steve will elaborate on that immediately when I come to Israel. Probably I will elaborate on that on my book.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Neil Cooper.
There's
Neil,
a scoop.
Unmute. There's a scoop.
Yeah.
Unmute yourself, Neil, and please ask.
Yes, thanks, Howard. And thank you, Ambassador, for everything that you've done for Philadelphia and for the Philadelphia Israel Chamber of Commerce, and of course for promoting commerce between the region and Israel, and generally to bring the region together and with Israel, of course, and you and everybody else on the call, Deputy Consul. Wish you the best in the future. I did want to ask you, Howard rightfully asked, what can we do better? And I think, you know, some of that conversation was focused on the government. And for those of us in the private sector, I'm wondering what your thoughts are, what we can do in the private sector to promote enhanced commerce and good relations with Israeli companies.
I think the important thing is to find Israeli partners. I think that the important thing is to learn the Israeli market, to learn the Israeli landscape, economic landscape, each one in its field of activity, field of expertise. I remember, for instance, one very impressive event that I think should be imitated in the area of medical cannabis, that Israeli and local firms partner and experts partner. I think that we bring very frequently, we used to bring, now it's very difficult, delegations that were specific to different areas of the economic activity, and come to Israel also economic delegations of Pennsylvania, of Philadelphia should come to Israel. Israel is open to business. Philadelphia is open to business. We have eco environments that are conducive to enhance business. And yes, my feeling is that we only scratch the potential that we have for that relationship, and knowing each other better, knowing the vehicles of investment, the vehicles of different tax opportunities, of subsidies or things that you do, but we always can do even more.
I'm looking forward to that for sure. Thank you.
And thank you, Anil, for your leadership and for your contribution to that relationship. It's really invaluable.
You talked about leadership at the top. So we have Neil Cooper, we have David Alon, we have Morris Goschel, we have Beth. We have a number of past presidents of PIC
Yeah.
who wanted to be here also just to express our, and yours truly, just to express our gratitude. What advice for your successor, and I know you're not saying or they're not announcing who she or he will be, but what advice would you have?
Well, you know, first of all, I took a look at, I have a wall in my office with all my predecessors from 1948 to this day, and there is only one woman there. And I think it's about time that we have a second female Consul General in New York that covers this area too. I think it's important. But look, first of all, in some sense, the Consul General to this area is also the ambassador of Israel to the American Jewish community. And 40 to 45% of the American Jewish community resides in the 5 states that we cover. Obviously, a large number in New York City, but not exclusively. And no less important than that, the national headquarters of most Jewish major organizations are in New York City. So that is an important task of the Consulate General in New York. I think that the importance of the bond between Israel and the American Jewish community cannot be overestimated. I frequently think if our contemporary Jewish generation has an extra mitzvah, an extra duty that is specific to our generation. For instance, there was a generation that had the extra duty back in the 40s to both in Eretz Israel and in the United States to try to save the European Jewry from extermination. Unfortunately, that generation failed. Probably it was impossible to succeed. I'm not judging, but as a matter of fact, they failed. Then came a generation that had the extra duty to try to liberate the Soviet Jewry, to bring home the Ethiopian Jewry. Thank God they succeeded. It's not so clear if we have also a special duty, because BDS is not, I mean, it's not that important to put in the same line with those that I mentioned. And I think we have two. I think one is to guarantee not only the existence, but the security and the success and the prosperity of the state of Israel, the Jewish state. And the other is to guarantee the continuity of Jewish life in all places in which Jews reside. And in my view, it's extremely important that to have cross responsibility, meaning that each Jewish community and actually each Jewish individual see himself or herself as responsible for both. It will be a tragedy if Israelis say we are responsible for Israel and Americans say we are responsible for American Jewry. We need every single Jew has to see himself, herself as responsible for both missions. And you do that. You do that both the PICC and all many of the Jewish organizations that are represented in this fabulous meeting do that. And the challenge is to bring all Israelis and all American Jews to do it. And I think that is the #1 mission of my successor. And I say it because you can ask, I mean, how come you say the successor should also bring the Israelis to be committed to the relationship with the American Jewry? And I will tell you, from day one, I said that in general matters, when I speak with Governor Wolf, Governor Murphy, I am Governor Cuomo, I am a one-directional envoy. I represent Israel to New York, Israel to New Jersey, Israel to Pennsylvania. But when I deal with Jews, I am a bi-directional envoy. I represent Israel to the American Jewry, but I also represent the American Jewry to Israel. And both to the public opinion and to the government. And for me, that was an important part of my mission, and I hope it will be also an important part of my successors.
As an old TV news reporter, I realized only too late that when I asked that question, I preempted the answer by assuming you wouldn't tell us if you knew. Do you know who's going to succeed?
No, I don't know. Actually, nobody knows as far as I know. I spoke with the new foreign minister, Gabi Ashkenazi, and he hasn't decided yet whether it will be a political appointee or a professional diplomat. But on the time being, my very able Deputy Consul General, Israel Nitzan, that is here on this Zoom event too, he will be an acting Consul General, and I'm sure he will do a fabulous job.
Present company excluded, all of us on this call, who are you going to miss the most about this tour, this 4 years here? Who will or what will you miss the most?
Well, you know, I will miss so many things that is, so many persons and so many things that is difficult to pinpoint. I became extremely connected to the Jewish community of this country, of this area that I represent. Again, I just browse, you know, the screen here when I put it on gallery view, and I see so many persons that I know I will miss. For instance, my good friend Peter from the Association of Foreign Diplomats in Philadelphia has been such a treat to work with you, and Israel is here from IIC. I see Iris and Yoni and Sharona here, and so many, and Liliana from the Argentinians, and I am sure that, and obviously Tzvi from Jefferson. I am sure I missed many faces that I don't see now. But, you know, Vered was extremely special for me. Vered became a close friend, a confidant. I think that Vered is the ultimate ambassador of Israel to Philadelphia. I'm not sure we need anyone else when we have Vered here. She's an incredible human and professional asset for Israel and for Philadelphia.
in our last few minutes, I want to have Verity sing some comments that are very important, very valuable, and I want her to unmute herself and she can say it directly. But I also wanted to remember to convey to you the deepest personal and warmest regards from your immediate predecessor, Ido Aharoni, who I spoke to earlier this week and invited him and all, and he's doing something else now that he couldn't avoid. I'm sure you spoke to him or you will, but I told him that I would convey his greeting, his garus, and I'm doing that. Verin?
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dani. I just am speechless, but I guess you like to embarrass me, so it's okay. I want to pass very warm regards and gratitude from Ryan Floor from the Philadelphia Orchestra. You were instrumental in facilitating the travel of the orchestra in 2018 to perform in Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, in Haifa, and I've been there and it was amazing.
Instrumental, that was a good one.
Pun intended, pun intended, yeah.
Dr. Grunwald from Philadelphia, from the Jefferson is here, and we were traveling together. I was with Jefferson. It was an amazing experience. So thank you for all that you and your team has done to really promote Philadelphia in Israel. So that was fantastic. And the Jewish Federation of Philadelphia, of course, led the delegation, and they're here on the call on this event. Also comments from Marcel Groen asking what's next for you and thanking for your friendship. We have here Zabet also thanking you and for all that you've done. From the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, we have Joe Burke, Sherry Collins, and David Brill. They're all made comments thanking you for everything that you did for strengthening the ties, friendship, commercials, and otherwise in Pennsylvania. And of course, we were with you on the mission with Governor Wolf in Israel. Several of us here, it was Neil Cooper and Zvi Grunwald, all worked with me on making this trip so wonderful. What else? Let me see here. Pierre from the City of Philadelphia also sending on behalf of the city. Thank you for everything that you've done to strengthen the relationship with the City of Philadelphia. And warmest regards from Tiffany McKeever, a member that also came on the mission in September. Sharona is sending very, very strong warm regards also to you, not only to you, but also to your wife. I used to work for the Israel Economic Mission in Taiwan, and I truly can appreciate the sacrifice that you and your family have made from day one to do what you do to strengthen the commercial ties between Israel and this region. I can speak on behalf of many of the Israelis here. The thing that strikes all of us is how much America loves Israel, but the diplomatic team headed by you and Israel Nitzan is here also on the call, have done so much, you and your families. I thank you on behalf of all of the organizations on the call for your significant contribution to making this relationship flourish, especially that you were in New York and we lost our consulate here. Deepest gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I want to introduce just for a few seconds, Matt Fingerman, who's the current president of the Philadelphia Israel Chamber of Commerce. Matt?
Thanks so much. So I think we've mentioned it before, but the PICC's role is to promote bilateral economic and commercial ties between our region and the state of Israel. And we're the only organization that does it. And Verid's our only staff member. But I think we can all attest that she does the work of probably about 5 full-time staff members. So we're very grateful for her. But I think we'll always have a very special place for Ambassador Dayan, because within a day of him arriving to the United States, he was in Philadelphia. He was with the Philadelphia Israel Chamber of Commerce, meeting members and helping create those economic ties at a very early stage. And he didn't stop. And his dedication has frankly been unmatched, and we're forever grateful. So whether it's hosting our local governors in Israel, bringing delegations to our region and our 3 states, or even helping create some of the really valuable joint ventures, I think we have a lot of things to be proud of. The ambassador has a lot of things to be proud of, and I'm really happy that we get to celebrate with them today.
Thank you so much, Matt. I really appreciate it.
Consul Dayan, you have represented us with honor, with poise, with sophistication, and with dignity. When you return to Israel, I hope you will take with you our very best wishes for good health, for strength, for peace, for security, and for prosperity. I'm going to request once again that all of our microphones be unmuted so that we can give you the ovation you deserve, and it'll help you remember all your dear friends here in the greater Philadelphia, New Jersey, Delaware.
And Howard, don't forget, we don't say shalom, we say leitraot.
Howard, just one more thing, Howard. We have Joe Burke here on the call from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. He would like to say a word. Joe?
Yes. Yeah, thanks very much, Vered. So, Danny, it really was a pleasure working with you. We've in my tenure here with the state, and I see Michael Alexander there. With my tenure with the state, I've been to Israel about 3 times. David Briel probably has been there more often than I have. He also has been instrumental in many of the agreements that we've signed. Sherry Collins has been there. She, at that time, was the Deputy Secretary for Technology and Innovation. We also have, who I should definitely point out, we have Alaya Furman-Stanger on as well. So we've got some good representation here from the Commonwealth. We're living in more difficult times because of the budget constraints, COVID. But we recognize Israel as a really, really important market. We're going to take advantage of some of the innovation that we see there. Certainly take more advantage of, hopefully, of the Bird Foundation and some of the innovation that goes on there. And we look forward to working with your predecessor or whoever follows you and solidify that relationship. So it has been a good one, and we hope to continue that. So thanks very much, Vered, for the opportunity to say something very quick.
Thank you so much. And I would like to add, if I may, 2 brief things. First of all, I would like, they are not present here, but I would like to thank the Philadelphia Police Department. Every time I came to Philadelphia, they took care of my security, and really we became friends with the detectives with me all across the city. And, I appreciate it very much. And we saw here briefly on the screen Mike Alexander that for most of my term was in charge of our relation with Pennsylvania. And to the extent that I succeeded, I think that Mike has a great share of it. And he has also additional thing to remark, although it's very unkosher, and that is the fact that we have a tradition that every time that we came to Philadelphia, we tried a new joint for a Philadelphia cheesesteak. And Michael was in charge of choosing the joint in which we will have the Philadelphia cheesesteak. So it's don't spread the word. It's not kosher for an Israeli diplomat to reveal that it had so many good Philadelphia cheesesteaks, but that is also, not only that, but also that is thanks to Mike.
I'm glad you said it because I thought of it before when we were talking about being here in Brazil and what you got from being here, but I didn't say it, so I'm glad it came up at some point. Now can we unmute everybody and say thank you and Godspeed. Godspeed.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Toda rabba. And see you
Thank
soon.
you.
Bye, everyone.
Shalom b'karov.
Bye, Sharona. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Hasta pronto.
Hasta pronto. Nos vemos.
Pronto.
Godspeed. Godspeed.